I always thought my marriage was strong. We had our ups and downs, but nothing serious enough to break us apart. Or so I believed. My wife, Claire, was smart, beautiful, and independent. She had a good job at a marketing firm, and I was proud of her. I worked as a graphic designer from home, which meant I was around most of the time. We had a nice little house, a shared routine, and enough love to get through the rough days. At least, that's what I told myself. Over the past few months, things started to change. Claire began working late more often. At first, I didn't think much of it. Deadlines, important clients, all part of the job. But soon, working late became coming home past midnight, or sometimes not at all. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off with a quick smile and a vague excuse. That night, I made dinner early. Spaghetti with garlic bread, her favorite. I wanted to surprise her, maybe have a quiet meal together like we used to. By 7:30 p.m., she still wasn't home. I sent her a text. Dinner's ready. When will you be back? No reply. I tried again an hour later. Still nothing. By midnight, I was pacing around the living room, checking my phone every few minutes. The food had gone cold. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching it. My mind kept running through possibilities. Was she stuck at work? Did she have a flat tire? Was she sick? Then at 2:45 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Claire. I grabbed it quickly, expecting an apology or an explanation. Instead, it said, "I'm not your property." I just stared at the screen, reading it over and over. My first reaction was confusion. What did she mean by that? I hadn't said anything to make her think I owned her. My second reaction was anger, because it felt like she was accusing me of something I hadn't done. I didn't reply. I just sat there in silence, the cold glow of my phone screen lighting up the room. The words kept echoing in my mind. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and I had no idea how bad it really was. By the time the sun began to rise, I knew one thing for sure. My life was about to change forever. I didn't sleep that night. After Claire's message, "I'm not your property," my mind wouldn't stop racing. I sat on the couch, staring at the clock. Each minute felt like an hour. I kept wondering where she was, who she was with, and why she would send something like that to me. I called her phone twice. No answer. I sent a short reply. "What do you mean?" The message was delivered, but she didn't read it. Or maybe she read it and just ignored me. That thought stung the most. At 4 a.m., I got up and looked out the window. The street was quiet. The only sound was the distant hum of cars on the main road. Our driveway was empty, her car nowhere in sight. I sat back down, rubbing my eyes. My chest felt heavy, like something bad was about to happen. As the minutes passed, my thoughts shifted from confusion to suspicion. Had she been with someone else this whole time? I didn't want to believe it. She was my wife. We'd promised each other honesty, loyalty, forever. But promises are easy to make when things are good. By 5:30 a.m., the first light of morning crept into the living room. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee. Though my hands were shaking so badly, I almost spilled it. I thought about calling her parents or her best friend, but I didn't want to drag anyone else into this. Not yet. When my phone finally buzzed again, my heart jumped. It was just a bank notification. At first, I almost ignored it, but then I noticed the time and location of the transaction. A payment at a cafe across town at 5:14 a.m. I didn't know why, but something about that detail made me feel sick. Why was she having coffee at dawn, miles away from home, after sending me that cold message? I opened the cafe's location on my phone and stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to drive there right away. Another part of me didn't want to see what I might find. I kept picturing her sitting at a table with some stranger, laughing, looking happy, happier than she'd been with me in months. The idea burned in my chest. At 6:10 a.m., I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. The air was cool and smelled faintly of rain. I drove without music, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every traffic light felt like it stayed red just to torture me. When I reached the area near the cafe, I didn't park in front. I circled around the block and stopped on a side street where I could see the entrance. My eyes scanned every person who walked out. No sign of her. Then, at 6:27 a.m., a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Claire. She was wearing the same clothes she'd worn to work the day before. Her hair was a little messy, her makeup smudged. She was smiling at the man walking beside her. They stood close. Too close. He reached out and touched her arm, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she laughed at something he said. Then they walked together to a black sedan parked nearby. He opened the passenger door for her, and she got in without hesitation. I sat there frozen, watching as the car pulled out of the parking lot and headed toward our neighborhood. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just staying late at work. This wasn't just needing space. This was something else entirely. I didn't follow them right away. I waited a few minutes, letting the car get ahead, my mind spinning with 100 different thoughts, none of them good. By the time I turned my engine back on, one thing was clear. I wasn't going to just sit around and wonder anymore. I needed to know the truth. As I drove home behind a memory of that black sedan, my mind started flipping to the past like an old photo album. Only the pages were torn and the colors had faded. I remembered the first time I met Claire. It was at a small bookstore downtown. I was looking for a design magazine, and she was browsing the travel section. She dropped a book, and when I picked it up for her, our eyes met. I remember thinking she had the kind of smile that could stop time. We talked for an hour right there in the aisle, and by the time we left, I already had her number. The first year was perfect. Dinners out, weekend trips, long talks about our dreams. She told me she wanted to start her own marketing firm someday. I told her I wanted to work for myself as a freelance designer. We pushed each other to go after what we wanted. She was my best friend, my partner, my everything. But somewhere along the way, the laughter started to fade. It began with little things. She'd get irritated when I asked what time she'd be home. I'd get frustrated when she buried herself in work, even on weekends. We started sitting in silence at dinner, scrolling on our phones instead of talking. The goodnight kisses became quick pecks, sometimes skipped altogether. One night about a year ago, I remember waking up at 1 a.m. and realizing she wasn't in bed. I went to the kitchen and found her sitting at the table, staring at her phone. When I asked if everything was okay, she just said she couldn't sleep and was catching up on emails. I didn't believe her, but I didn't push it. Then there was the Christmas party at her office. I showed up with a bottle of wine and a smile, ready to meet her co-workers. She barely introduced me to anyone. I noticed the way her boss, tall, well-dressed with a perfect smile, lingered near her. They laughed together like they were sharing some private joke. When I asked about him later, she just said, "Oh, he's married. Don't be paranoid." After that, I started noticing changes. New clothes, more makeup, a different perfume. She spent more time networking after work, if I called. She often didn't answer, and would text back hours later with a quick busy, can't talk. My best friend, Mark, told me I was imagining things. She's just working hard, he said. You've got a good woman. Don't mess it up by overthinking. I wanted to believe him, but my gut told me something was off. The fight started small, but got uglier over time. I'd ask why she didn't come home until 2 a.m. She'd snap that I was controlling. I'd tell her I missed spending time together. She'd say I was clingy. The words, "I need space," started showing up more and more. Then there was that one Saturday morning. I planned breakfast in bed, pancakes, strawberries, her favorite coffee. But when I woke up, her side of the bed was empty. She came home around 10 a.m., wearing a sweater I'd never seen before, claiming she'd gone for an early walk. She smelled faintly of cologne, but not mine. I never said anything. I wanted to avoid another fight. Looking back now, I could see it all so clearly, the late nights, the sudden changes, the way she stopped looking me in the eyes when she said, "I love you." I had ignored the cracks because I thought love was enough to hold us together. But love isn't enough when the other person has already walked away in their heart. And now, after seeing her with that man at the cafe, I realized those cracks had been warning signs all along. I just refused to read them. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as I pulled into our driveway. Her car was already parked there. She was home. Part of me wanted to burst inside and demand answers. Another part of me wanted to wait, watch, see how she acted, what she said, if she even mentioned where she'd been. Because if there was one thing I'd learned from the past year, it was that Claire was good at lying, and I was finally ready to catch her in the truth. I sat in the driveway for almost 5 minutes before going inside. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was in my throat. Through the living room window, I could see her moving around. She looked relaxed, like she'd just come home from a casual morning out. When I walked through the door, she glanced up from pouring herself a cup of coffee. "You're up early," she said, smiling faintly. I didn't return the smile. "Did you get my message last night?" She shrugged. "Yeah, I figured you'd be upset, but I didn't want to argue over text." "Where were you?" "Out with friends." "You don't need to know every detail of my life, you know?" That last part stung. It wasn't just the words. It was the coldness in her tone. I could tell she was trying to shut me down before I even started asking questions. I didn't push further. Not yet. I knew if I confronted her too soon, she'd just twist the story and make me feel guilty for doubting her. She'd done it before. Instead, I decided to gather proof. The first thing I did was check our shared bank account. Claire rarely used cash. She always paid with her card. That made things easy. I found 2 charges from the past week that stood out: a dinner at an expensive steakhouse on Tuesday night and a hotel bar charge late Wednesday. Both times she'd told me she was working late. Next, I checked her social media. Most of her accounts were locked down to friends only, but I noticed something odd. Her Instagram following list had a new name near the top. I clicked the profile. A man in his late 30s, sharp suits in every photo, luxury vacations, expensive watches. The same man I'd seen at the cafe that morning. I remembered his face from somewhere else too, the Christmas party at her office. Her boss. I kept digging. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't stop. I opened the phone location tracker we'd set up years ago when she lost her phone on a trip. She'd never disabled it. I scrolled through her recent history. The pattern was clear. Late nights spent in a few specific spots on the other side of town. Restaurants, bars, and one particular apartment building. That apartment address made my stomach twist. I copied it into a map app. It was less than a mile from the cafe where I'd seen her earlier. I knew I was crossing a line. Spying, checking her locations, stalking her bank records. It wasn't how I wanted to live. But the truth had become more important than my pride. That afternoon, while she was in the shower, I checked her work bag. Tucked between her planner and a file folder was a receipt for 2 glasses of champagne at a rooftop lounge, dated the same night. She told me she'd been finishing a project with the team. It felt like every small discovery was another punch in the gut. My hands were trembling when I put the receipt back exactly where I found it. I started keeping notes, times, dates, places, anything that didn't match her stories. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with all of it. Maybe I wanted to be sure before confronting her. Maybe I wanted the satisfaction of seeing her face when I showed her I knew everything. That night, she said she'd be working late again. My chest tightened, but I played along. "Okay," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Don't work too hard." As soon as she left, I grabbed my keys. This time, I wasn't just going to follow her location on a screen. I was going to see exactly where she went, who she was with, and how deep this went. I drove a few streets behind her car, keeping my headlights low. She didn't take the route to her office. Instead, she headed toward that apartment building I'd seen on the map. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. She pulled into the parking garage, and moments later, the same black sedan I'd seen that morning rolled up beside her. He got out, smiled, and touched her back like it was the most natural thing in the world. My stomach turned. I didn't need any more proof. But I also knew this wasn't the end. Something told me there was more to the story, and I was going to find out what it was. I didn't sleep again that night. Even after following her to the apartment building and seeing him there, I came home and sat in the dark, replaying every moment in my head. The truth was heavy, ugly, and still, I felt like I didn't have a whole picture. When she came home past midnight, she walked in quietly like a thief. I didn't move from the couch. She looked surprised to see me awake. "You're still up?" she asked. "Couldn't sleep," I said, my voice flat. She just nodded, hung her coat, and went straight upstairs. No questions, no explanations. I stared at the ceiling until the clock read 5:30 a.m. The sky outside was turning pale blue, the streetlights flickering off one by one. I grabbed my phone and checked the location tracker again. Her phone was moving, not from home, but from somewhere across town. That didn't make sense. I'd watched her go upstairs. I ran up to check the bedroom. The bed was empty. Her side was untouched, the blanket smooth. A wave of heat rushed through me. I threw on my jacket and headed for the car. The streets were almost empty, the air cool and damp. The tracker led me to a quiet residential area I didn't recognize. I turned a corner and froze. There she was, standing beside that same black sedan, talking to him. The early sunlight caught her face, and I could see she was smiling. Not the forced, polite smile she'd been giving me lately. This one was real, warm, alive. He handed her a coffee, and she laughed at something he said. My chest tightened. I couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that with me. They talked for a minute more before she leaned in and kissed him. Not a quick peck. A kiss that lingered, the kind that makes time slow down for both people. I sat in my car, frozen, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding, my ears ringing. Every part of me wanted to storm out, yell, make a scene, but I didn't move. Instead, I watched as he opened the passenger door for her. She slid in, and he walked around to the driver's side. They pulled away slowly, turning toward our neighborhood. I followed from a distance, keeping 2 cars between us. My mind wasn't quiet anymore. It was a storm. I thought about every time she'd said she was working late. Every time she'd looked me in the eye and lied. Every time I doubted myself instead of doubting her. When they pulled into our driveway, I kept going past, turning onto the next street. I parked where I could see the front of our house without being seen. They sat in the car for a while, talking. She touched his arm, and he brushed her hair away from her face like he'd done it 100 times before. Finally, she got out. She walked to the front door slowly, like she was in no rush to get inside. When she opened it, she didn't even glance around to see if I might be there. After she went in, I sat there for a long time, my mind numb. It wasn't just a betrayal that hurt. It was the casual way she carried it, like I didn't matter, like our life together didn't matter. Eventually, I drove back and parked a block away. I needed a plan. Storming in right now would give her the upper hand. She'd twist the story, say I was spying, accuse me of not trusting her. No, I needed her to see that I knew, that I had proof, that she couldn't talk her way out of this. As I walked toward the house, the sun was fully up, washing everything in bright, clear light. It felt wrong. The world looked fresh and calm, while my life was splintering apart. I unlocked the door quietly. She was in the kitchen, pouring herself another cup of coffee. She looked up at me, completely unfazed, like she'd just come back from the gym or a morning walk. "Morning," she said, her voice light. I just stared at her. The urge to lay it all out, to tell her I'd followed her, that I'd seen everything, burned in my throat. But I swallowed it down. Not yet. I walked past her without a word, up the stairs and into the bedroom. If she noticed how quiet I was, she didn't show it. One thing was certain. The next time we talked, there would be no more hiding for either of us. I stayed in the bedroom for most of the morning, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. My mind was running in circles, but my body felt heavy, almost numb. I kept hearing her laugh in my head. The one I'd heard at dawn, the one she'd given to him so easily. Around 10 a.m., I heard her footsteps on the stairs. The door opened a little. "You okay?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. "I'm fine," I said flatly. "We need to talk." Her shoulders tensed. "About what?" "About where you've been. About last night. About this morning." She blinked, but didn't step inside. "I told you I was with friends." "Don't," I said, my voice sharper now. I followed you. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. I saw you at the apartment building. I saw you with him at the cafe. And this morning, I watched you get out of his car, in our driveway. The color drained from her face. You've been spying on me? I almost laughed at the way she tried to turn it around. Don't make this about me. You've been lying for months. She crossed her arms. You don't own me. I can spend time with whoever I want. Whoever you want? I repeated, my voice rising. You're my wife. We made vows. And you've been sneaking around with your boss behind my back. She didn't deny it. Not right away. She just looked at me, her jaw tight, like she was deciding whether it was even worth pretending anymore. Finally, she said, I haven't been happy for a long time. The words hit me harder than I expected. And instead of talking to me, you just replaced me? I needed someone who made me feel alive, she said. You've been different, always checking up on me, asking where I am, what I'm doing. I felt trapped. Trapped. I shook my head in disbelief. That's what you meant in your text, isn't it? I'm not your property. Yes, she said simply. I'm not yours to control. My hands curled into fists, but I kept them at my sides. Wanting to know where my wife is at 2 a.m. isn't controlling. It's called caring. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? She sighed, like she was tired of the whole conversation. I didn't want to hurt you, but I'm done pretending. I'm leaving. I felt my chest tighten. You're leaving? Just like that? I've already packed some things, she said. I'll come back for the rest later. For a moment, I couldn't speak. All the anger, all the hurt, all the nights I'd sat up waiting for her. It was boiling over, but I forced myself to keep my voice low. Go, I said finally. Go to him. But don't expect to walk back through this door like nothing happened. She didn't answer. She just grabbed a small suitcase from the hallway and headed downstairs. I followed her to the front door, not to stop her, but because I wanted to watch her go. When she stepped outside, the black sedan was already waiting. He was leaning against it, sunglasses on, like this was just another ordinary morning. She walked straight to him, without looking back at me. The engine started and they drove away. I stood there in the doorway long after the car disappeared. The house was silent, but it didn't feel peaceful. It felt empty. I didn't know it then, but this wasn't the end. It was only the start of something even darker, something I never saw coming. The house felt wrong without her in it. Too quiet, too still. Every corner seemed to hum with leftover tension, like the walls themselves had heard the fight and were holding on to the echoes. For the first 2 days, I didn't do much. I went through the motions, made coffee, sat at my desk, pretended to work. But most of the time, I just stared at the door, half expecting her to come back in. She didn't. I blocked her cards that were linked to our joint account. I changed the locks. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about cutting the cord completely. I thought that would give me some peace, but instead, it left me feeling hollow. On the 3rd day, I got a call from Mark, my best friend. He'd heard through mutual friends that Claire had moved in with a friend from work. I didn't correct him. I didn't have the energy to explain that friend was her boss. Listen, Mark said hesitantly, I heard something else. You might want to sit down. I sat. I have a buddy who works in corporate investigations, he continued. He's been digging into Claire's company. Her boss. Let's just say he's not clean. There's talk of money laundering, fake client accounts, all sorts of shady stuff. And Claire's name is popping up on some documents. The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. What do you mean? I asked. I mean, she's not just with him. She might be in on it. Her signature, her email. If this thing blows up, she could be in serious legal trouble. I thought back to all the late nights, the urgent projects, the secretive phone calls. I'd assumed it was about the affair. But what if that was only part of it? She knew I'd never go along with something like that. I said slowly, maybe that's why she kept me in the dark. Mark was quiet for a moment. It might also be why she sent you that text. I'm not your property. Maybe she was trying to make sure you didn't ask too many questions. If you dug too deep, you could have ended up tangled in it too. The thought made my skin crawl. Had I been protecting myself without even realizing it by letting her walk away? Or had she been protecting herself by cutting me out? That night, I couldn't stop thinking about her expression during the confrontation. She hadn't looked scared. She'd looked calculated, like she'd already decided how to play the next move. The next morning, I got my answer. A plain white envelope was slid under my front door. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, an email printout. It was from Claire to her boss, dated 2 months ago. Subject: account transfer. Body: funds have been moved as discussed. No trace back to me. Meeting tonight at the usual place. There was no signature, just her initials. But I knew her writing style. It was hers. I stared at the page for a long time. If this was true, she wasn't just cheating. She was committing crimes, and possibly using her relationship with me as a cover. I didn't know who sent it. Maybe someone inside the company, maybe a whistleblower. But one thing was clear. I was now holding something dangerous. I called Mark and told him about the email. His advice was blunt. Keep it safe and keep your head down. If the authorities come asking, you didn't know anything. Don't get dragged into her mess. For the first time since she left, I felt something other than heartbreak. I felt relief. Relief that she was gone. Relief that I hadn't confronted her sooner in a way that might have put me in the middle of her secrets. Still, a part of me couldn't help wondering. If I hadn't followed her that morning, if I hadn't seen the truth for myself, would I still be sitting across from her at the dinner table, completely blind to what she was really doing? The thought chilled me more than the betrayal ever had. The days turned into weeks, and the ache began to fade, not because I stopped caring, but because I started seeing things for what they really were. I'd spent years thinking of Claire as the person who knew me better than anyone else. Now, I realized she'd been showing me only the parts of herself she wanted me to see. The rest had been hidden behind locked doors, whispered phone calls, and late-night meetings. The email sat in my desk drawer, sealed in a plastic sleeve. I didn't take it to the police. Not yet. Maybe I was still holding on to some twisted loyalty, or maybe I was just waiting for the inevitable. People like her boss, and maybe people like her, didn't stay untouched forever. I changed more than just the locks. I closed the joint accounts, redirected my mail, and cut contact with anyone from her office. I needed to scrub her out of my life completely, but the biggest change was internal. I stopped thinking of myself as a victim. She'd chosen her path, and I'd chosen mine. Hers might look exciting, fancy dinners, secret meetings, fast money, but mine was clean. I could sleep at night without wondering who was watching me or what would happen if the truth came out. One evening, I was sitting on the porch, watching the sun go down when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? There was a pause, then a familiar voice. It's me. I almost hung up. What do you want, Claire? I wanted to say I'm sorry, she said softly, for everything. I let the silence stretch. Sorry didn't mean much now. You don't need to explain, I said finally. You made your choice, and I made mine. She hesitated. If anyone asks, you don't know anything. Okay. There was the real reason for the call. Not guilt, not love, self-preservation. I don't know anything, I said, and I don't want to. I hung up before she could answer. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the air grew cooler. For the first time in months, I felt completely at peace. Not because I'd forgiven her, but because I no longer cared what happened to her. Her story and mine had split apart, and I wasn't looking back. Whatever came for her now, whether it was love, money, or handcuffs, wasn't my concern. I was free.